Every once in a while, a guy leaves a comment on my channel that is so perfectly ego driven and self exposing that it illustrates everything I'm saying that is wrong with men today who fail with women. And I just have to thank him for providing my audience with the exact example of what I talk about. Today is one of those days. So, this comment, I'll read it fully in a bit, but it illustrates exactly why most men are failing in dating, failing in relationships, and often failing in life in general. So let's break this down. Not to roast the guy or whatever, but to teach everyone a lesson as to what not to do so that you don't sabotage your results. Now, normally I ignore these comments because engaging with them is usually pointless. People who comment like this aren't trying to learn anything. They're not curious. They're not interested in actually discussing anything with me. They're just protecting their egos. And they're doing it publicly and attempting to do it at my expense. So when I choose to respond, I am responding to them, but not for them, if that makes any sense. I respond for you guys. If I think that smashing a dumb comment is going to offer a teachable moment for you guys, then it's worth it to me. In my original video, I said something very simple. Don't build a life with a woman who doesn't see you as her first choice. Pretty straightforward. A sixth grader could understand it. But then this guy shows up. He starts off with barfy face. Okay. Barf face emoji, and then says, I think you're counting out a lot of reality here. How many people end up with their first romantic interest or first choice? How do you even know about their previous exes or how they treated them? You don't. This is drivel. In reality, you go through several romantic interests before you can find the person you belong with. You might not be her first choice. They might not be yours. You have to compromise. Find out what your partner likes. Let them know what you like. And if you can't get on the same level, move on. Don't get angry and try to force people to conform to what you think is right. Someone wants you to do, most likely you got to find them. Okay. Now, much of what he's saying has very little to do with the video. I'll put that link in the description in case you're curious to watch. So here was my reply. Of course, I put spelling errors too. Your post demonstrates your arrogance and lack of knowledge. Ego protection was one of the things I stated in the video as to why guys fail. Thank you for commenting and demonstrating ego protection and what that looks like so that everyone can see. You are showing an inability to take in new information and how one retreats into familiar platitudes in order to convince themselves that they are doing everything right, rather than being willing to learn where they might be doing things wrong. You have a misunderstanding of first choice, for example. As you date someone, you can become her first choice over time, when maybe you weren't the first person she would have gone with initially. But if you become her first choice, then you are still her first choice, even if you weren't initially. Bottom line is, you shouldn't be marrying someone or building a life with someone who doesn't see you in that way. It sounds like you're just trying to justify dedicating yourself to a woman who doesn't see you as her best choice, which is fine if you want to ruin your life. Just don't try to suck other men down to your crappy standard. And then he replies, nope. You're wrong on many levels. Best choice supersedes first choice. Okay. If you go with someone just because they see you as the first choice, you can end up with someone obsessive, easily controlled, unable to allow you to see a different point of view because your point of view becomes doctrine to them. This is a bullet worth avoiding. Again, compromise. Find a healthy yin to your yang. That is what's most important. Ego happens to be what you are promoting here in a toxic fashion. An open-minded person finds harmony in ego loss. Careful of a partner that worships the ground you walk on. So my reply is, you have zero authority here on the topic, and it shows. You are making a semantic distinction between first choice and best choice that doesn't exist in this context. And then you are making erroneous assumptions about someone becoming obsessive based on a false distinction, followed by dumb hallmark platitudes like yin and yang and compromise. I'm leaving your comment up so everyone can see what arrogant ego protecting men look like. Way to tell everyone that you dedicate yourself to women who don't like you without directly saying so. Keep it going. I am considering using it for a video. Okay, now this is the part I need every guy here who's listening to understand. When a guy writes this sort of thing, he is telling on himself. He's telling on himself loudly and accidentally. He doesn't realize that he's broadcasting his entire dating history. So here's what a guy like this is really saying. He's really saying, I usually go for women who don't find me attractive. And these women usually pick someone else to bang, and I stick around anyway as the male orbiter friend in hopes that it doesn't work out for her first choice so that I can hopefully pick up the broken and used version of her when the alpha guy is finished. He's basically saying he's the kind of man who would use another man's dirty sock. And maybe, just maybe, this guy just friended his way into a marriage. And now he needs a belief system that makes him feel okay about being second place to a woman that he is pining for. So he invents his little philosophical framework, like creating a false distinction between best choice and first choice, and throwing in platitudes like relationships are about compromise and yin and yang. Anything to avoid saying the truth, which is she just doesn't want him and he fights to stay with her anyway. When I say ego protection, this is what ego protection looks like in real time, guys. Men create an entire religious values sometimes out of protecting their little egos. Unfortunately, many of my Christian brothers have been guilty of this here. Now, for the sake of argument and entertainment, and to clear anything up from those who might be confused, I'll pick this thing apart. So you'll notice that he tries to make a semantic distinction between best choice and first choice, but this doesn't really exist in human mating or in the context of my video, if you had watched that previous video he's commenting on. Here's the actual reality. If a woman genuinely desires you, you become her first and her best choice. Those two things are one and the same. She wants you above everyone else. That's it. Super simple. It's simple if you're not trying to use mental gymnastics to justify settling with a woman who doesn't really like you that much. And sure, oftentimes a man grows into being her first choice through the seduction and dating process rather than starting out that way. And that's totally fine. I always tell my coaching clients that it's where you end up that counts, not so much where you start. But at the end of the day, she must want you above anyone else for it to work, period. If she doesn't, then you are negotiating desire. And negotiating desire is just a fancy word for saying lonely and miserable and trapped. Now let's talk about his favorite buzzwords and platitudes, and I'll act as the translator because these are similar buzzwords and platitudes that lots of other people use, okay? Out of reality, or saying something isn't reality. So saying something isn't reality, in this case, is something guys say when they can't face the fact that their shitty relationship standards are low. So they're going to rationalize that anything above his horrible standard for how he's living his life, that must not be real. Okay, so that's what that is. So he says in reality, you go through several romantic interests until you settle. What he's really saying here is that he can't fathom in his imagination that he could ever be better for a girl than the men of her past. So to him, what I say is, in his words, drivel. Okay. So then he goes on to say that you have to compromise. This is a common platitude. Well, guys, compromise is a word that men use when they're being walked on and they have zero leadership in their relationships. And then he argues that desire is actually a problem, that if you are a girl's first choice, she'll be like toxic and crazy. So this tells me that, like many other men, he has never been truly desired by a woman or has been a woman's first choice. So he assumes that a girl being in love with a man means dealing with the toxic and crazy drama stuff, right? He equates those two things. And then he throws in something regarding yin and yang, which basically translates to, I don't know what I'm talking about. So here's some Eastern philosophy that I remembered just to justify the shitty time I'm having and to rationalize that shitty times in relationships are normal, because yin and yang and good and bad times or whatever. All right. You get the idea. But every single little phrase in his explanation is just cope. And these are the types of things that men try to repeat to themselves as they try to rationalize why the woman they're with doesn't actually like them. So here's the lesson, guys. When you are arrogant and stuck in dumb beliefs to protect your ego, you can't see the truth. You can't see results, and you can't self-correct. And you will sound arrogant and stupid at the same time without realizing it. And that's a deadly combo. Now, every man has been guilty of some version of ego protection before. Everybody, okay? But the guys who win in life are the ones who can set that ego aside and learn to shut the fuck up, observe results, and adjust their behaviors. So here are some takeaways and things I want you to remember. Number one, if your results suck, you are doing something wrong. Number two, if you are telling yourself a story as to why your results suck, it's because your ego is lying to you. Number three, you can't ignore truths, like, for example, saying genuine desire is negotiable when it isn't. And number four, don't create a belief system to justify being unwanted or being rejected or for failing in anything. This is the quickest way to keeping yourself stuck forever. Number five, let your results guide your reality, not your feelings and emotions. Stop inventing stories to sleep better, guys, and start taking responsibility so you can live better. Now, if you found this helpful, hit the like, subscribe, and share this video with a man who needs to stop negotiating for desire and who needs to stop protecting his own ego. And if you want a deeper mindset breakdowns, check out my Apex Mindset links below and get into my community, okay? It's free and it'll get you started on doing the right things to finally start getting what you want.